Dr. Xiaodong Lin is a professor at TC in cognitive studies, and she studies the impact of different learning environments, instructional activities, and new media on students' motivation to learn and how to solve particularly challenging problems, particularly in science, technology, and engineering and mathematics in the STEM area. So Dr. Lin is going to speak today about a really exciting area of research on improving students' motivation to learn. That's somewhat groundbreaking, somewhat provocative. Her research was recently published in the Journal of Educational Psychology, but the media has taken off about it, right? So there's been media outlets, CBS News, PBS, Science, New York Times, BBC, Australia News Network, News India, Chinese People's Daily. It's sort of taken on because it's sort of captured people's imagination of how education can really motivate people to engage in this area. Dr. Lin was selected as the Carnegie Scholar by the Carnegie Corporation of New York and has received early career and outstanding research awards from AERA. This year she was named the Yellow River Scholar by the Chinese government, and she's serving on the Expert Advisory Board of the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development for the Education 2030 initiative from 2015 to 2020. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Lin.
Thank you, Peter, for your very kind and generous introduction. And this is such a great honor to be the keynote speaker on the first TC Psychology Conference. And so today I'm going to talk about improving students' motivation to learn. But before I get started, let me thank you all for coming. This is a Friday, and the sunshine is outside. You don't have to be here, so I better make it worth it. Okay. And then several people I want to thank. First, I want to thank the TC Psychology Committee for nominating me. And I also want to thank my lab, Motivation Instruction Lab, for their persistence and to put up with me. And then I also want to thank my colleague, John Black, for always listening to our crisis and settling our crisis. And also a lot of schools we're collaborating in New York City area make all this work I'm reporting possible. So I need to thank all of them. So in 2012, OECD published a PISA test result. And here's the result. It shows that United States ranked number 17 in reading, and 31 in math, and 23 in the science. And this is among 65 countries. So anyway, so this result caused a lot of anxiety and concern among the educators and the policymakers in the United States. And there's a lot of criticism about our system because these results shows that we are not preparing our kids well for the future. So then there is a bunch of problem related to that. And people were saying, so what's wrong with the United States? Because this kind of a picture about math and science performance being so poor also lead to another problem, which is our STEM pipe is leaking. So we have 4 million people to begin with in the high school. At the end, we only have 167. We lost like 96% of our people from the STEM. And then we could say, who cares? Maybe we don't need that many STEM people. But I think we do, because look at all the STEM field filled with immigrants. So that shows that we do need people in that field. And so those results from OECD PISA test also filter into this leaking pipe in the STEM thing. And then there is a lot of criticism. Okay, so is that because we're too poor? And the other people saying that maybe we're just so stupid. Okay, maybe they say American students are stupid. Are we stupid? No. Take a look at IQ test. So IQ test, we ranked number 4. So apparently, the good news is that Americans are not stupid. The bad news is that what happened if we're not stupid and then we're not doing well? So then the U.S. News did a survey several years ago after this to the public about these results. What happened to our poor performance? And the 30% of the highest responses for this poor performance relies in parent support is not there, and the students are lazy. And certainly it's not because our school is too hard. You look at too hard, only 4% people saying that. So then too lazy. Are our students really lazy? Not really, because you look at all these young people playing games and playing their cell phones and all that. So we're not really lazy, but what happened here? So this leads to the major themes today of my talk. So I want to talk about 4 issues. One is that why aren't our students motivated to learn STEM? And the second is that how can we improve our students' motivation then? And then I'm going to talk about some of the projects we're doing, and then I'm going to talk about what are the surprises and the implications for the future, and also what is the take-home message. So from there, where am I? Okay, so motivation. Motivation is one of the most complex issues in the world because there are too many factors affect our motivation. There's external rewards that affect us, and sometimes you also see people work very hard even without awards. So there's also a level of fun and excitement, like what I said, kids playing games, and they're not demotivated. And there's also power, social affiliation. I want to be in control. So all these factors motivates. But there is one factor, the last factor I'm going to talk about is also part of my research, has drawn a lot of recent attention from the field and from the public, which is our judgments and the beliefs about ourselves, about our own ability, and also requirement for what takes to succeed, and the causes for success and failure, and whether my effort pays off. So no one wants to put in a lot of effort when you see that there's no way you can succeed, right? So you have to be convinced that somehow you can succeed. So these are the areas that I focus on in my work related to motivation. So I want to show you I may need a technical support here. Maybe not. Okay. So I interviewed 3 kids. I interviewed many kids. These are just the 3 very representatives that you can walk in the hallway and just pick out the kids, ask them, hey, give me 3 words that come to your mind as soon as you think about Albert Einstein, Marie Curie, and etc. So these are what they said. It's a very typical response in our research.
Smart, famous, research.
The second person say?
Research, lab coats, genius.
Third person say?
Brilliant, cold, logical.
So if this is the picture in our students' head, this is a true students' interview from our sample. What are we going to do about this? And what does that tell about their beliefs and judgment about the science? This field looks very, very gloomy and not attractive at all. So then, where does all these thoughts coming from that you just heard? So this kind of a cycle is also bad. The research shows that if you believe that only genius can succeed in science, and then usually they think genius do not need to work hard. So if I have to work hard in order to get somewhere, apparently I'm not genius and I'm not made for it. You hear so many parents and students saying, oh no, math is not my kid, or math is not me, or science is not me. You hear a lot of people saying that. So where does all of this coming from? I just Googled before my talk. I just type in Einstein. So this is what I got. It's genius all over the place. So you can Google it too. You will find the same thing. So I just did a screen capture. And then, so our media, so you also see the magazine. Okay, baby Einstein, baby genius, genius, genius. So our culture loves genius. But we don't really know how genius become genius. Then here's another book I found from Amazon, and saying, how can you succeed without struggle? So we really picture, and also this guy got a 4.5 rating with his book. And the book is also cheap, it was only $11. So that's also very motivating. You can read a book without struggle, financially and emotionally. So I think this kind of a book is also, color all into our notion about you can succeed without struggle. And then this is most interesting. So we did a survey, we did a review about textbooks, science textbooks in a high school used where we research. We just flip over many, many different textbooks. So this is one passage particularly came to our attention. They said that Einstein was the most powerful mind of the 20th century, one of the most powerful that ever lived, and that he is most different from anyone else. So do you feel related to someone like that? And you certainly don't feel that way. So all these things that may filter into the reaction we got from the kids. And let's hear what scientists say about being a scientist. So this is a Dr. Liu, Helen Liu from she's the professor of biomedical engineering at Columbia, chair of grad studies. I asked her, I said, so what do you say about scientists over my telephone call with her? She said, lots of patience, problem solving, we make lots of errors. This is different from what kids say. And I also want you to pay attention to this book. And this book called The Failure, Why Science is So Successful, is written by Dr. Stuart Feinstein, a member of the National Academy of Science and also a professor of biological science at Columbia, and he's in the audience. So his book got a really big hit, and he got into the TED Talk and all that. So he was talking about, I'm going to tell you what he said about science.
When I think of a scientist or doing science, of course, because I've written about it, I first think of ignorance or mystery, curiosity, and then another word is fun, because we really have quite a bit of fun playing around. And then I guess the third word has to be failure, because much of what we do fails, but we just go back and do it some more.
So did any kids talk about fun? It doesn't appear in any of our surveys. And then they did not talk about failure that much either. They did talk about hard work. They said that scientists have to work hard, and that's not a surprise. But failure, oh wow, that's a surprise to us. So that's also why we started to focus on failure. So now you hear the messages from two parties, one kids and the other one is real scientists, and they say different things. So that presents us a big challenge in education as well as a great opportunity for research. So there has been a lot of research here. The thing which seems to be a next step is how can we change their beliefs? And especially trying to motivate them through belief change. And there has been work going on in this field in the recent years, like Carol Dweck's work on girls' mindset intervention, and also value affirmation, and also self-control, and the math anxiety intervention by Sam Baylock from University of Chicago. So there has been a bunch of work going on in this field, but this field is definitely in the infancy, especially the instructional side of a motivation through belief intervention. So our approach, that's what I'm going to talk about more today, is the role models of a persistence. So we try to tell stories about famous scientists' struggles. And we also try to provide, you just tell stories, describe them, saying they struggle, that doesn't go anywhere. So we need to provide them with detailed examples of actions and strategies these people use to actually struggle. And we also have students imagine themselves in the scientist's shoes. So you can't just say, here's scientist, here's you, and who cares? And then you need to think about yourself. If you were in this kind of a situation, how would you react to these kind of obstacles and stuff like that? So we did trying to put kids in the scientist's shoes. So these are the kind of features highlighted our approach. And this approach comes from several directions. One is from my own upbringing in China. So when I remember during the summer on the winter break, and the Ministry of Education actually asked us to read about, this is required by them to read about scientist stories. And also the math teachers always tell us about, who and who struggled, and then, this content you're learning today did not come from nowhere, blah, blah, blah. So that kind of stuff. So we grow up with it. So when I talk to Chinese students, they say, we never feel that scientists don't struggle. So because we heard a lot of them, but we haven't empirically tested them, whether this, perception works in the reality. So we did a study with a TC grad student. We did a first study about having students listening to struggle stories of celebrities, about the scientists, and then to another group, have them to just listen to their achievements. And then we measure their persistence and their also computer-based problem solving, and also confidence in learning science, and we see the growth, the increase in all these areas. So that paper was published also in the Journal of iPsych. And so this study proved to us that this approach carries some promises, but the sample size was in China. Does that work? Is that going to work in the United States? That's how this current study I'm going to talk about. So why are we using struggle stories? Let's step back a little bit. So one is that stories are really Stone Age old art, and there's nothing special about stories. And John Black has studied the stories since 1980s. And but the struggle stories that, first of all, the stories are usually better than just give them the facts or expository information, because they usually are personal, and they're emotional, provoking, and also more persuasive than lecturing. So there's actually somebody did a study, I think Zach did a study now a few years ago in a fundraising setting. They divide people into two groups. One is to tell stories about this organization, why they want the money from them. The other group that just tell them the facts, saying we need money to support blah, blah, blah. So the story room got more significantly, twice as much money donated from the participants than the people from the expository information room. So I think that presents the evidence for why the story has a lot of power over the lecturing or facts. So why struggle stories? I already said that. And why is our approach unique? So typically, stories about role models are usually heroic deeds and also great accomplishment. This guy is just, and also if you Google on Einstein or Tyson or Marie Curie, you'll find a lot of their great accomplishment. And even Tyson himself said that his failures were not highlighted by the media, but accomplishments, achievements were. So we want to highlight their weaknesses, their limitations, vulnerabilities, and we want to tell the story about scientists to model how you can persist when you face obstacles. And we also want them to model what specific strategies these scientists have used. So we also empirically tested this idea in a natural classroom setting. So these are the few features make our program somewhat unique. And so I want to show you, just give you an example. I talk about all these stories, and you better listen to one example we developed ourselves. And my students and I have become a script writer as well in this process. So we developed this video ourselves and used it in a study. I want you to listen to this.
Albert Einstein studied physics that looked at space and time. His work made it possible to develop today's technology, such as televisions, iPhones, and GPS. Many people think that Einstein was a genius, and everything he achieved did not take any effort. But that is not true at all. Have you ever completed a project or a paper and received negative feedback? Einstein experienced something similar.
He wrote a paper about relativity theory after working on the project for 5 years. When it was finally published, however, he received a ton of negative feedback from many other scientists. Imagine yourself as Einstein in this situation. How would you feel? Einstein was mad and wanted to give up, but this paper mattered a lot to him in his future. He decided to revise his work. As he began revising, he quickly realized that just having a goal to improve was not enough. He needed specific strategies to address these criticisms. He first decided to analyze the criticism. He drew up a table and listed out each critique, organizing them from most important to least important, and wrote the actions he would take to address each critique. After he analyzed each critique, he realized that he needed more math skills than he had to continue revising. In a letter to his friend Max Planck, who knew a lot about math, he wrote, "I encountered mathematical difficulties, which I cannot conquer. I beg for your help, as I am apparently going crazy. I've read your paper several times. Do you want me to talk about what I like about your work, or what I don't like about it? I want to hear what you don't like about it. I want to know how I can improve. Okay, let's begin." Einstein and his friend talked frequently over a few months. During this time, he worked diligently on the revisions. He ultimately improved his paper after another year of hard work. It was this paper that won him the Nobel Prize. When people commented how smart he was, he smiled and said, "It's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer. Most people say that intelligence makes a great scientist. They are wrong. It's persistence."
We did the TC student voiceover that who was an actress in the Broadway, and so we use all the TC resources, and so it's like a real movie, and so anyway, so we use this kind of a story, and then we also highlight the strategies that Einstein used. So this is a very different story than you would find with a children's book, because we researched all the Scholastic children's book. We truly could not find anything. I even talked to Scholastic CEO, have them to help us, and they dig into the library. They said we couldn't find these stories, so we have to make our own. And so you see that, so that's what, we contrast this kind of a story with the one I just read earlier in a textbook. Einstein is unlike anyone else. But if you hear him begging for help, it's like every one of us. We all have run into difficulties. We all scream for help. So make us more human. So we divide the kids randomly into two groups, and one reads the struggle story, and then the other group reads the achievement story like you have seen. So we measure the following outcomes, and we look at their science class performance. I always tell my students, if the grades level didn't go up, it will be very difficult for us to say how interesting our work is. Of course, there are many, many other factors that are interesting, but grades is what teachers care and the school care as well. So, and the persistence and the personal goals, we also measure beliefs, and we use Carol Dweck's measures on beliefs of intelligence, fixed mindset or growth mindset, and we create our own measures like beliefs about roles of effort in science learning, and to see whether we got any impact by listening to different stories. So here I'm going to talk about the few results here. One is the science class grades, and the other one felt connection. You feel connected to the scientists and in what way you are, and beliefs about roles of a struggle in science, and beliefs about intelligence and the persistence measure. So we gave them an animal kingdom test, have them to create as many categories as possible. And they're really bored by it, but we want to see how well they can persist through this task. So And here's one result on the science grade. And as you can tell, the struggle story condition performed over the 6 weeks during our intervention, their science grade was significantly higher than the other group. And also, these students are from 4 different schools. It's not just one school. Every school within class, we randomly assign them. So the randomization is at the individual level. It's not at the school level. And make the data more robust. And then this is very interesting. So if you compare within the group achievement before and after our intervention, the achievement story group actually did worse comparing to before and after. And the struggle group within measures and did not drop. I mean, after they are significantly better, but within the condition did not have a significant differences within their condition. So this is a failed connection, okay. So the major thing I want you to pay attention to is a high relate. So we ask children that, do you feel related to the scientist, and in what way you do, and if you just say, yo, yes, I'm related, but you can't tell how you're related, we don't give you credit for that. So you really have to also spell out how you feel you're related. So then you see that the high related people in the control and the struggle stories, even though they both are high related reported, and their scores are different, significantly different. So the people who are in the struggle story, when they report highly related to the scientists, they also score significantly better than the people in the control group. And the low relate, in both groups you have that, but it seems like the control group has more of that. So what this graph tells you is that being simply feeling related to the scientists is not enough, because they all reported among high relate people, they all say I feel connected to the scientist. So here the qualitative data really helps. So we take a look at that. What do they say about they relate to? So this is one example. In the achievement story condition, they say, I feel connected because I used to be that smart. And I'm the smartest in my class, and I used to get many awards. And maybe they're not now. So just feeling connected to, but connect at a different reason, they may not help your scores. And then the struggle stories where more people feel connected to the Einstein and also reported this kind of a connection. They said that, I have struggled just like Einstein. I have a lot of failures in my life as well. So the qualitative data really helps us to understand what kind of a connection we're talking about, not simply feeling connected. And then the beliefs. So we did find these 2 measures to have a significant differences between the groups. One is that the beliefs about only smartest people can become scientists, and a control group had received significantly higher scores than the struggle stories. But when we asked them, even the most successful scientists had to struggle, and you saw that struggle group significantly scored higher than the control group. So this belief for these 2 items, we also saw the significant differences. And then the persistence measures, we did not see the direct effect that significant between the groups. But when there's no direct effect, doesn't mean there's no indirect effect. So thanks to my postdoc and my research team, they did a lot of analysis on this, and then they discovered that people who reported related to the scientist and would show high performance in the persistence, and also these people happen to be in the struggle stories more so than the other group. And so the persistence measure did not show up by itself, but mediated through how much you feel connected to the scientist. And so is the Carol Dweck's measure about beliefs. And in our first study, we found nothing. So then we felt, our study did not affect beliefs at all. But further analysis shows that reading struggle stories lead to a greater relatedness to scientists. And then which in turn also lead to a stronger beliefs about growth mindset. So, so this is a very tricky. That also tells you motivation is really not a straight shot. And you can't just analyze at one level and say, oh, yeah, I'm motivated, I'm not motivated. It bundled under lots of factors. So what surprises us? And a lot of people ask me lately, what surprised you here? So what surprised me is that I feel that students can relate to these long-gone scientists who are 100 years old. And they know nothing about except their genius reputation. And they're not music or sports celebrities they watch TV always about. These are boring, dead people and perceived as that, but they can still feel related to. So, and also the kids we research with, most of the kids are from minority groups and the Hispanic and the blacks and the low economic status background. So, and these role models do not carry too much similarities between our students' body and these people. So that tells me that maybe the sharing struggles can create a very powerful natural link among people, regardless of a race, regardless of a power and a gender. So maybe that when the faculties share their struggles in writing papers, trying to get paper published with students, would that connect more with students? I don't know. Would that impact students' performance and scores? That will be interesting to test out. So anyway, that's what's interesting to me, because I never thought they would connect it to people like that. And so we struggled as a group. So our Janet said, unlike controlled study, when you go to a classroom, it's really hard to control all these irrelevant variables in a classroom setting. And she was trained in the social psychology motivation field and well-controlled studies and this setting. So this is also her first time going to school to work the whole year long with us. And that's her insights. And then our lab manager, Melissa, was saying, oh gosh, schedules change all the time, and we were locked out all the time. And then Mariana, our PhD student, was saying that you really can control peer influence. When monkeys start to dance, a monkey follows. So you really cannot stop them. But at least I know all of them at a personal level. And Dan Fei was saying is that, we're very excited about our project, right? But doesn't mean other people are excited. So when you present to the school who don't want you to be there to begin with and are thinking about you as a waste of their time, how would you sell your project to both administrators, teachers, and to the kids? That's really our challenge as well. And Zhongqi was saying that if you want to have a big culture shock, really understand American culture, go to American schools. So that's also my advice to a lot of Chinese students studied in the Teachers College or any other international students. I say go to schools. Don't just stay at TC. And you will see why you are studying here once you go to schools. So these are our struggles, and I'm constantly struggle about, oh gosh, should I do pull-out study? Should I do in-classroom study? All these kids goof off and fight with each other and all that. I have no control over, and there's also depression going on. So what am I going to do? So we're constantly running into obstacles and struggles ourselves, and not all our experiments succeed either because of all of that. So what can educators take away from all of this? And I think that in our classrooms, doesn't matter K-12 or college, we do not like to talk about failures. This is not good news. And we often think about telling people failures is demotivating. But I think that in our K-12 classrooms, especially filled with immigrant classrooms, schools, we really should create a culture talking about failure is okay. And also normalize your struggle. You're not the only one who are struggling. And another thing is that we should humanize our science textbooks. And right now we're teaching dead facts. If you ask children, many people don't even think our content is created by humans. They think by some aliens from space. And so I think we should provide more human stories about the content that we're reading. And also reveal the realities, actually prepare people for failure. So in this semester, it was my first time to teach the new PhD student pro seminar at TC. So I did was that I asked all my lab people who had struggled a lot to talk to the new PhD students about how hard it is to go through the system, to jungle and also deal with critical professors and managing kids and the families and life and time and the friends and all that. So they came to tell the reality. Guess what? I think 50% of my class was very depressed by that. But, immediately, okay. But later on, they started to come back to say, at first, when I hear about all these people's struggles, I hated it. Why are you guys here telling us? But then later on, I get more motivated. That's why I'm here. And I have to deal with these obstacles. So I think we're hiding these things, and that does not attract people. Eventually, they won't finish, or they will not be able to deal with the failures as well. So I think telling them what really takes to succeed really matters. And what's next? So I want to create more interventions since connection to the scientists is so crucial, mediates a lot of important findings. We need to get more interventions that strengthen the connection. So right now, we're having kids to role play, and like they set up a studio. One act like Einstein, the other one act like a reporter, so they ask each other questions. And that process made me feel that they bring in their own problems into the conversation as well. But certainly we can do more, especially with the help of technology. And I also want to extend our work. I also want to compare our approaches with other approaches. That's why we got NSF grant to compare our approach with Carol Dweck's approach to see whether we have different impact and stuff like that. And I really want to extend our work to broader range of subject matter. It could go to the math, could go to immigrant studies, could go to younger kids. So maybe we early on teaching younger kids that scientists do struggle. Maybe we can prevent some problems down the road. I'm not saying we can prevent all the problems. And this is not a cure for all kind of a solution, but solve some problems. And so the good thing is that I'm not alone doing this motivation research. I have quite a few colleagues also doing that. So Ryan Baker was doing disengagement emotions and also using the data mining to analyze their long-term learning outcome. And Kathy Chase and her groups are actively doing technology, how they can use to provide motivation tools and the experience to encourage persistence. And the Beth Tipton is involved in a national project that assessing 75 schools to see how the growth mindset is really doing here. So a general take-home message after all this talk, I think that this is especially true for the Teachers College. We're so globalized and having so many international students. And we should really embrace our own culture and upbringing and use them as a wisdom for your own study, because this approach I'm testing is not solely from the Western culture. It's also from my own upbringing. But I merge them with the Western problem. So I don't mean that you should not learn about American culture. This is crucial. You should not just block yourself into your own culture, only by extend yourself to another culture to really learn about them, to understand their problems, and then you can really start to see why you are unique, and you started to see your own pros and cons. So with that, I want to also thank our funders from NSF and Spencer Foundation and Carnegie Corporation, and lately Ford Foundation is going to join us as well, talking about getting more grants in this area. So the end.
My question really is that, like, I think the top issue that you had was like support from parents.
Right, right.
And I'm just curious about anybody studying, or what you think about, how it, talking to parents too makes.
I think that parents are crucial because you hear too many parents saying, "Oh, Linda is not a math person. She's very creative, but just not math and science. Oh no, we don't go to math and science camp." And or, "Oh, we're not going to do that." I think parents are very important because kids see the world through parents' viewpoints. And we haven't done that study, but actually the school's principal suggests us, "Would you like to talk to our parents' meeting about your study?" I said, "I would absolutely love to." And this is also now Ford Foundation talked to us about having kids interact directly with scientists and also have parents to be part of the conversation. And you're absolutely right. That's a very important factor. Yeah.
Hi, Doctor. Thank you. I have more of a personal question, I guess. I don't know if you were aware, October last year, there was a big scandal with one of the textbooks in Texas, where the textbook publisher apologized because he called the African slaves, not slaves, but workers. And so everybody was really upset about that there was no mention of the Africans being slaves, but workers. And so everybody was really up in arms. And so my question is, how honest do you think these textbooks should be? I mean, growing up as a Latina, I never saw Latinos in textbooks. So how much of that information should be shared, in our schools?
You mean the information about struggle?
The real struggles.
Right.
I mean, yes.
This is a really interesting question because sharing struggle, I haven't tested empirically, but my insights is that maybe the timing of a sharing struggle is very important. And this is especially sensitive for the groups that's vulnerable to stereotypes,
Right.
Latinos, blacks, or women, especially in STEM field. If they already being stereotyped as being not fit into STEMs, plus they make too many mistakes or don't do well. And here you share their struggles, maybe even doing worse.
Right.
But on the other hand, I also feel that maybe the timing of the sharing the struggles is very important. Like if I walk into my grad school, if I walk into my first day of my class, I say, "Let me tell you how many failures I've encountered last year. I got 5 papers rejected, and I had 2 PhDs and wrote a horrible letter about me. And I did not get tenure." And so and you suddenly appear like an incompetent role model. So the role model research show you need to be competent. You also need to be relatable. You also have to be attainable. So these factors all play into that. So I think sharing successful Latino scientists, they already carry the competence credential, but then you go back to talk about how they achieved it. It's actually going to motivate rather than demotivate. So I think that, and you also see our story, we did not say, Einstein never achieved anything. So people already know Einstein achieved a lot. And about then we go on to highlight a lot more about the struggle. I don't know if I answered your question. I feel I'm mumbling, but yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
Professor, I have a question about, I'm really interested, thanks for your sharing. I'm really interested in your marrow the persistence of the, you marrow the students changing by marrying the persistence. And I wonder, is there any standard to marrow it, count the student, how long student can stay, solving the computer problem, how long they can stay, or how long they can stay, or is there any emotional change, if they are still be patient, or is there any standard to marry their personality before doing that? Because maybe the personality can be a factor to affect their changing. So
That's a very good question, and I'm sure personalities factor into everything we do. And we have not really measured personality just because a lot of existing measures are not very stable. And early on, like by David McKillen's work on the personality measure, there's a lot of debate about that. So we did not enter the personality variable issue, but I'm sure it is a variable. In terms of persistence, believe me, we are struggling with persistence measure every day just because this is such a difficult variable. Think about it. I can be very persistent when I'm writing when I'm writing my paper, but I won't be persistent when I try to set up a table and bought the different parts from Home Depot. Then I couldn't do it, and then I gave up in 5 minutes. I would say, I need to ask somebody else who's better in the hands-on to help me. But then in something that you value, you're going to be very persistent. In something you don't value, you won't be. So persistence is not domain general and not situational general either. So I'm saying that when we measure persistence, we really need to think about the interest as well in that specific situation that you are measuring, and also high and low performing students persisting in different things as well. So I think that your question is a big one, and we probably need to, maybe next year we will have a better answers after we try out more measures that we created this year, and come to visit us. Yeah.
You had mentioned that it was difficult to find children's books that included struggle. By any chance, have you found any through this or been in touch with any publishers that there's any hope for?
My major source is going to Scholastic. So I really dig out into their storage house. I even told them I'm willing to pay someone there to help us to see if you have any stories we can borrow. Because I'm lazy. I don't want to create a story by myself if there are something already there. But I truly didn't find anything that's to our satisfaction. I'm not saying there is no struggle here and there somewhere, but I don't think there is a concentrated tell a full story about here's the goal, here's the issue, and here is the strategy, and here's the outcome. I don't see that kind of a story in children's book. And if any of you, I even searched in England when I visited, gave a talk in Oxford last year. So if any of you know such books, then please let us know. Okay, thank you.